Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I thought I wanted to make a video about something that came to my mind when I was talking to someone who was not an artist and definitely not a digital artist, and who had kind of weird ideas about digital painting that I remembered that I also used to have, which is kind of funny when I think about it now because my mind has changed a lot about this. But first, let me tell you something about the painting here. It's a contest entry for another contest on DeviantArt. I really like to do those. And because of the appearance of the characters, I wanted to try out a bit different style. So basically more imaginative colors. I tend to use a lot of grays in my paintings usually, and I thought I should try out something more vibrant and different colors, and I think it actually worked out pretty well. I'm kind of surprised because I thought it might go really bad. It's far from perfect, obviously, but for me it was a really different experience, and I think I learned a lot. I might not do something like this very soon, but I'm definitely going to keep what I learned from this in mind. For example, for all the shadows here, I used the color. So I mostly used purple and green hues, and well, I ended up having some trouble because of that in the end because I wasn't really thinking about the background first. But other than that, it was a really good experience. But let's get to the list now. The first thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand about digital art is that it's easy, and that it's easy because of the ability to undo things, because you can use Ctrl-Z. But the truth is, at least for me, I use Ctrl-Z very little. I do use history, go back in history sometimes, but very rarely. And most of the time I would just paint over something if I feel like it didn't really work out at first. But I would say that there are a lot of perks to digital drawing, which makes it faster and easier, sort of, and that is because you can use layers and you can try out more things, you can experiment more, and I would say that is definitely something that might make it easier to learn and help you to learn, especially about compositions and things like that. There's nothing wrong with using Ctrl-Z, but I find that artists who are good at arts in general and not just digital art, they don't really need to use it as much. It's a useful tool to have, but it's not really something you need to use all the time. Unless, well, I've never done really like line art, so I might not be familiar with that, but I feel like it's for painting, it's definitely not the thing that would make digital painting easier. And in general, I would say that there are some difficulties when it comes to it, when you compare it to normal painting. For example, you have to, I think I talked about this in my previous video, but you have to create your own organic looking brush strokes, basically, because you cannot use a normal brush. You have to make it look like it was a natural brush, if you want to make it look like it was sort of painterly. Which is kind of funny because the person that I was talking with also criticized the fact that some digital art looks like it was traditional, and for some reason that's wrong. I don't really understand what that was about, but that was kind of funny. The second misconception that people tend to have about digital art is that at what it is exactly. Because if you talk about doing digital drawing, people tend to think about you're doing like just fan art, just like My Little Pony kind of stuff. But I think people often fail to realize that a lot of the medium that they consume is digital art and digital painting as well. In a lot of games and movies, I don't think most people realize that a lot of the backgrounds in movies are actually paintings. And something that surprised me quite a lot, I don't know why, but it did, is that there is a lot of fine art that is digital as well. It's not all commercial. A lot of it is made by fine artists, which I found pretty cool. at least if it looks good. What I actually find interesting is that we divide digital art as an entirely different medium compared to traditional arts, even though I feel like there are so many different ways of doing traditional arts that it's not really, it's a weird way to segregate the two, I feel, because it doesn't actually mean a lot. When you talk about digital art, you don't really know what type of art you're gonna be making. And I realized that it's fairly new. Well, it's not really new anymore, but it is kind of new, and especially the fact that you can have, you're able to do that even as a normal person. You don't have to be a professional who somehow is able to obtain Photoshop. You can have it as a hobby, and that's normal. And I think that's the amount of digital art that we see online is, well, especially on sites like DeviantArt, a lot of it tends to be quite low quality and low effort, and I think that's one of the reasons people don't really understand what digital art could be and what it is very often. And obviously there are, depends on what you consider to be good quality art, but I would say you can usually tell if someone has put effort into the drawing or not, like regardless of their skills, because everyone is still learning, obviously, but you can usually tell. So the third thing that people often think about when it comes to digital art is that it's fast, and I would actually say that's true to a degree. It's not fast per se, but it can be faster than traditional painting would be, for example, or traditional drawing would be. That's definitely not the case all the time, and depending on how you define fast, I would not know how long it would take me to make paintings that I do right now, which take me about 20 hours each. They might take me a lot longer if I was trying to do that with like acrylics or oil especially. But I would say that, once again, just because something is faster doesn't mean that it's fast, and it doesn't mean that it's easier either, so that's kind of a... It's a true point, but it is kind of pointless as well, I feel. I mean, other than being employable, because it's easier to make a lot of fast work than it would be to take a lot of time doing work which would be of the same quality but just takes a lot more time. And then there's the whole thing, and this is my fourth point, the whole thing about real art. I've seen a lot of videos about this, but I find it a bit amusing, because to me this is very simple. I don't mean like it is simple to define what is real art, but whether or not digital art is real. And I would say that depends entirely on the motivation of the piece that you're creating, and whether or not it's supposed to be art or not. And that's kind of the whole definition of art, the intention of the creation. So for example, I think the painting that I'm doing right now, that's not real art. And that's not... It is an illustration, but regardless of its quality, it's not intended to be... It's not intended to have artistic value, because it is an illustration and its purpose is to illustrate the characters rather than have some kind of a deep message about something. And I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that your painting or your drawing or whatever, it's not real art. Maybe I have a different definition of art to other people. To me, this would be quite simple though, and I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that. But if you're, that has nothing to do with the medium. Like, that's my point here. If you're doing art with a purpose, of creating art, and it has a message and it has a reason for it to be art, then I would say that it's art. It doesn't matter if you're using pencil, it doesn't matter if you're using Photoshop, it doesn't matter if you're taking a photo. None of that matters. What matters is the intention. And that's why it's funny when you see these videos with paint, like their thumbnails have like a really beautiful painting and it says this is not real art. It doesn't matter how good the piece is either, you know. It doesn't matter if you've drawn a really super pretty character if you're not really, that's not meant to be art. And I am kind of thinking about fine arts here, because I would say that defining every creative creation to be art is, you know, that's kind of, it's lost its meaning at that point. So when I talk about something being art, I would refer to it being fine arts, because obviously you have things like concept arts, which is not really, it is for the purpose of a concept for something and not really because of arts, but it's still called concept art. So yeah, when it comes to being real art, I think about that it's meant to be talking about fine art rather than if this is a creative creation. I really should have made that clear from the start, and I also think a lot of the people who talk about this should make it clear that there is a, you know, when it comes to defining art, either you can't really define it or you choose to limit what it means a little bit. When it comes to the quality of art and fine arts, I would actually say it's pretty funny. In my opinion, a lot of digital arts which is commercial, which is for movies or for games or anything like that, I think a lot of it is actually better than the contemporary fine arts, which is done, well, it doesn't really matter if it's done traditionally or digitally, but I suppose especially traditionally I feel like people tend to care less about skill when it comes to traditional art than when it comes to digital art, which seems really backwards to me and really strange. There are a lot of different artists out there, obviously. I'm just talking about what I've seen based on the museums that I've gone and the kind of digital art, the best kind of, quote unquote, that I've seen. But this is obviously a matter of opinion, ultimately. It's probably pretty clear that I am a huge fan of technical skills and being a good artist technically, and, you know, putting the time and the effort into learning those things. So I have a lot of appreciation for artists who are able to not only express their own ideas and their own visions, but also just express it really well and really skillfully, and that's something that I definitely want to learn. But yeah, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I was trying to talk a bit better this time, I hope it shows. But yeah, I'll make a new video. It might take a while. I'll be off for a week or so, I think. But I'll be back at some point, so stay tuned. And if you have any questions or any comments, or if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. You can tell me though. You can leave a comment. I will respond, definitely. And I really appreciate it if I can read people's comments, because that would be a lot of fun. Oh, and if you somehow stumbled across this video, not sure how, but if you did, you haven't seen my art before, you can check it out in the links. I have my links to every social media that I have. But yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.